Welcome back. In today's Q&A Monday episode, let's talk about load development techniques. Our first question comes from Philip from Germany. Paraphrasing here, Philip wants to know how to identify a velocity range target for load development. Since I was planning a separate video on this subject, let's just do it now. When I start with a new to me cartridge or bullet combination, I do my homework first, usually long before the first chips are cut on the barrel. We will need to bifurcate the path here at this point, based on a single factor. That factor is whether the cartridge or combination is one where the shooting community has significant experience. For example, a standard cartridge like .308 Winchester has that significant experience. It even appears in almost every major load manual. That's not to say that this level of experience doesn't apply to Wildcat cartridges. The 6-Dasher, for example, has been used for so long and in so many different platforms that it too has that significant level of experience. Now contrast that with the 7mm Violator cartridge that I'm testing for a friend. It is a 7mm short-action Ultra Mag with a modified shoulder geometry. There were only 2 of these chambers in existence when I first got it, one for the designer and one for me. So let's back up and start with the significant experience scenario. Philip asked about the .308 Winchester specifically, so let's use that. While I'm speaking here, I have several terms for the barrel's happy speed. I might call it a node from time to time. Just know that to me, the term node denotes a spot in the load spectrum where the rifle shoots small groups in a repeatable fashion. While this is a research project, I want to keep this presentation short, giving you the basics without getting exhaustive. Please do your own research. Shortcuts are a great way to load in an unsafe manner or fall for the BS that I occasionally see on the interwebs. The concept here is to find a smaller load window to search through for a good load, skipping all of the pitfalls that other developers have fallen into. This will help you minimize the number of rounds through your barrel while doing load development. One of the best places that I've found for collective experience with a cartridge is the forums on AccurateShooter.com. If you use a search function, there are many years of insights and knowledge in those forums. While I'm here, let me ask you to do me one favor while you're there. Please buy a membership. I don't have a stake in that site, except I'm a gold member. But I know how much effort and money goes into quality internet stuff, and memberships pay those bills. If you are searching the forums and find some information of something near what you're looking for, don't stop. Keep looking. Someone might have tried the exact combination you're considering and posted their velocity and precision information. Now a warning. Do not use the powder charge that you read in the forum without doing an independent safety workup first. This is important, guys. I don't want you getting hurt. Back to what I was talking about. Sure, that powder charge might work for you, or it might not. Your rifle is not the same rifle that the poster was using, and you need to do your own work there long before looking for an accurate load. Let's do some looking at Accurate Shooter for the .308 Winchester with a 200 grain Berger hybrid bullet. From what I see looking through, the node, depending on powder, which we'll get into in a moment, is around 2,640 feet per second, with deviations of around plus 10 and minus 20 from the various posters. And virtually all of that data was for N150 or Varget powders. If we switch to the 185 grain Berger Juggernaut, the range spans from 2,720 to 2,760 feet per second for the node, with those same powders and a couple of others. But let me be clear here. These velocity bands describe what the poster decided was best in their rifle. All of the data I collected was for longer 30 to 32 inch barrels. Shorter barrels would have different nodes, so you will have to find data that matches your situation or determine it experimentally. Let's talk about powders for a moment. This is one of the rules of thumb I use in developing load expectations, not developing loads. There is a difference. The rule is that faster powders will tend to have the node at slightly slower speeds than a slower powder will. Take the 185 grain juggernaut load I spoke of before. I know that N140 tends to shoot quite well between 2720 and 2730. In that same barrel, Varget, which is somewhat slower in nature, tends to want to shoot at 2740 to 2750. The same rule applies to the 284 Winchester. H4350 likes velocities about 30 feet a second slower than H4831 SC, in my experience. This also applies as a barrel speeds up during break-in. Oops, I said barrel break-in. Anyway, as you have to drop the powder charge down as the velocity starts to rise. When you do that, you'll have to slow down a little more than to your original velocity to stay centered in the node. As is the case with most rules of thumb, there are some exceptions. One that I know of in the 284 is that Reloader 16, a faster powder on the burn charts, will shoot well at a speed that its slower cousin Reloader 23 cannot reach at safe pressures. That's not to say that the high node is the right answer. This is just an observation. The key points here are to lean on the collective experience of the community when researching what speeds to expect from a cartridge that is backed with significant experience. So let's go back to the top and take the other path, a new wildcat. In this case, there is no experience. Now, I use certain tools like quick load and the optimal barrel time theory by Chris Long. I'll leave a link to the white paper on that in the description. When I do this theoretical approach, I have to force myself to not take shortcuts and look at the entire spectrum, encompassing at least 2 potential node locations. Why do I do that? Because I've been fooled before and struggled as I tried to make an unstable load shoot. In the case of the 7mm Violator, I ran a 3-node wide optimal charge weight test and picked 2 areas I liked. The third one, which was the highest charge, was a little on the sporty side for my pressure tolerance, if you know what I mean. In that case, I identified my target velocity experimentally in one range session. I found it so quickly that I've had to reduce the charge a couple of times to keep in the node as the barrel sped up. There I go, talking about break-in again. I think I've covered that question to exhaustion. Let's talk about something else. Before that, if this kind of content is bringing you value, please like and subscribe. Now, let's do one more question for today. Let's talk tuners for a minute. I have received several questions about using tuners in lieu of seating depth to tune a load. Honestly, guys, I simply have not tried that and don't know. But I have a few thoughts on that concept. The first thing I'll note is the concept of tuner authority. I've used 3 different tuners in my time in F-Open. The first is an EC tuner from Eric Cortina. This tuner is around 4 ounces in mass and has some authority. This design is what I refer to as a dumb tuner. It is simply a mass that can be relocated. No damping or other stuff going on there. Here's my 0 position group. Now 2 units at a time, and the tune came back at the 8 position. Understand this is not a complete cycle of the tuner. I haven't wasted the ammunition yet to do a full sweep of the tuner settings in the 8 years that I've had it. But there are likely 4 good spots in the tune cycle at 4 different points of impact. So I can guess, and I mean guess, that the tuner will go a complete cycle in 32 units. If the 4 points theory is true, which I haven't proven. If you look at the 0 and 8 groups, you will see what I'm talking about. Tuner position 8 hits higher and is offset horizontally some as well. Now this tuner is on a very rigid barrel. The profile is 1 1/4 inch diameter and has no taper. It's a straight contour and is 30 inches long. The thing I want to point out is how far out of tune I can get, because that defines authority. I mean, I can get it a bit out of tune, suggesting that the tuner would be effective at pulling a load in, so long as it isn't too far out. As a point of experience, during the 2020 National Championships, I shot with a friend and competitor that brought a backup rifle to the line on the second day. That rifle started with a load that was producing vertical that extended from 9-ring to 9-ring. In other words, 1 3/4 minutes of angle at 1,000 yards. Twisting on the tuner resulted in a group of just over 1 minute of angle during record shots. I can guess from that experience and my experience that the tuner has a realistic authority of 40%. That is, it can reduce the group size from the worst possible tune by 40%. What that doesn't mean is that it can reduce the size of just any group. When a load is perfectly tuned with powder charge and seating depth, I've found that a fixed mass tuner, regardless of brand, can only make the groups larger, not smaller, when you move it. Now let's talk about a different tuner. This one is a DSB Fabrication F Open tuner. It is another fixed mass design, but this one only weighs in at 2.6 ounces. Being lighter, one would expect it to have less authority. So let's look at my experiments with a 29-inch long, 1.25" straight contour barrel. I only went a little way with this and noticed that it doesn't throw the rifle very far out of tune at all. If I had to guess, we're looking at an authority on this extremely stiff barrel of only about 30% at the most, and it never creates vertical groups. I ended up putting the tuner back at the starting position and using my load tuning skills instead. It's not that it can't improve the groups, far from it, but I needed a starting point that I controlled. One more, this is the PDT tuner and is one that I call a semi-smart tuner. It weighs 7 ounces. Inside the aluminum body are several chambers partially filled with tungsten powder. The effect is much like that of a dead blow hammer. There is a delayed, out-of-phase response to barrel vibration. I've never had this tuner on a barrel comparable to the other two, but the 32-inch heavy varmint tapered barrel I did have it on showed significant authority. On that barrel, my notes indicate that I was seeing an over 60% authority from the tuner. Moreover, the damping effect seemed to have a beneficial effect on rifle performance. After I initially set it during testing, I never moved it again for the entire life of the barrel. Back to our question. I think that a tuner can be used if it has enough authority to tune out a rifle that is close but not perfect. I don't think, with the barrel contours I use, that I could do that without at least a semi-reliable seating depth. The idea of chasing ES, then cranking on the tuner scares me a little, but I might try it for fun and might find a new methodology to adopt. Well, that's all I have for today. If you have questions that you'd like answered in a video, please email me at winninginthewind@gmail.com and I'll get you scheduled in. Thank you for watching. Until next week, shoot straight, and I'll see you on the range.